Okay, welcome everyone to yet another NOVA Scribes. We're excited to bring together this panel discussion. Here's who's talking to you. So from Asheville, North Carolina, Jorn Oppelt is a senior consultant at the Grove Consultants International. He expertly supports team in achieving alignment, drawing on 2 decades of experience in visual consulting, strategic visioning, graphic facilitation, executive coaching, and team development. Jorn holds a certification in coaching, storytelling, design thinking, and virtual facilitation. Not only that, he's an award-winning musician and producer. Jorn is the author of Facilitation, a human-centered guide to the art of collaboration, Visionary Leadership, how to live your strategy, create new habits, and inspire your team, and the Visual Meetings Field Guide, how to facilitate great meetings for amazing teams. So check those out. Jordan, go ahead and drop those into chat. And all the way from Raleigh, North Carolina, we've got Mike Muddy Schlegel, who most people know as Muddy. There he is. He's a graphic facilitator, a trainer, and a virtual event expert who really saved my bacon through COVID. Let me just say that. Who brings a wealth of technology skills to projects to enhance and engage collaboration. Since 2020, Muddy has been teaching visual practitioners how to improve virtual collaboration and supporting professional facilitators all over the world with digital studio best practices. There it is. And providing technical production for online events. Yay, Muddy. Tanya Gadsby is the founder and creative director of Fuse Light, a visual facilitation agency with 5 full-time staff and a small network of associates. She has 20 years of experience working in audience engagement with a focus on technology and interaction. Since 2010, Fuse Light has specialized in supporting climate and healthcare projects. Tanya is constantly testing new ways of using graphics and technology to facilitate learning and connection, whether it's virtual or digital graphic recording, augmented reality, projection mapping, and developing new ways of creating immersive spaces at conferences. Finally, there's this other guy. I'm Brian Tarallo. I'm a visual facilitator. I'm the managing director of Lizard Brain. I recently got my master certified facilitator accreditation with the IAF. I've received a Facilitator Impact Award. I'm a best-selling author. And quite recently, I became one of the first IFVP Institute certified master visual practitioners. More on that later. And with that, Sarah, let me turn it over to you.
Hi there, my name is Sarah Spencer. For those of you who do not know me, I'm with 26 Letters Studio out of Phoenix, Arizona. And I'm so pleased to have you all here today. Brian and I had a conversation a couple months ago about what is to become of visual facilitation. And we said, well, why not get a group of us together and talk about it? So we are all friends here and colleagues, and this is a great time for this conversation, not just because it's the end of 2004 and the beginning of 2024 and the beginning of 2025. We are all hopefully normalizing to a new way of life. And I think that a really great place to start with a question would be, what do you see as COVID's lasting impact on visual practice? And how about Tanya? How are you feeling about the lasting impact of COVID?
Yeah, amazing. What a question to start with. I think many of my colleagues would agree that COVID really highlighted the need for our ability to adapt to unexpected changes. And I think the pace of change is just going to continue to accelerate, whether that is change in terms of how meetings are done, change in terms of unexpected weather events, all these things that are going to force us to become more adaptable than we already are. So I think that's really the name of the game, is adaptability, and also leaning on our networks too. That was a huge part of COVID, was the expansion of NOVA Scribes as an example of the online spaces that we're connected into. It's been tremendous. So yeah.
Yeah, and has travel affected any of you in a different way since COVID? Like Brian, are you traveling more or less now that you're in the last years?
It hasn't quite ramped up, and that's something that I track pretty closely in terms of travel. One of the things that I'm seeing is that I think that groups are a lot more inclined to do virtual meetings just to save on the travel budget. So that's just my perspective.
Now, are you finding the budgets are back up to what they were before? Like Muddy, I know that you do virtual and in person. Are you finding that like the budgets have kind of changed too? Like where do you
I feel like budgets are a little different because I feel like events are a little different, and I don't get the sense that well, one of the trends that I've noticed is that there needs to be a more compelling reason to be in person. Like just get together and have a meeting where one presenter is presenting to a large room of people doesn't cut it anymore. Like that's not as compelling. I could just stay home and watch that kind of thing from home. So I found that the events that are in person have budget for more experiential components, and so it just makes for a better reason to get together, which I'm all for.
and Jordan, do you agree with that or do you have a different perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done what I would call an event in a long while. The last one I did was when I had my own firm a couple of years ago. But I tell you what, when I was doing graphic recording and facilitation full time, I mean, that was our bread and butter were the events. Right now, I'm kind of more into the sessions, change management sessions, team development sessions, trainings, workshops. The Grove, of course, has these core offerings around team performance and strategic visioning that has their phone ringing a lot. And so it's delivering these product offerings that are kind of, I don't want to say out of the box, because they're a little bit different every time, but they're definitely not events. They're smaller rooms. The larger event, which was a couple of hundred people for me last year, was a larger nonprofit, and it was like a leadership retreat that got everybody in the room, and that was more of let's hear the readout from the CFO, and let's watch this presentation from the science team, and when I think events, I think panel discussions and speakers and programming and things like that. And I've been out of that scene for a while.
Well, you've got a really great perspective being with the Grove. Now,
Yeah.
are you saying that everybody's coming to you to the Grove campus, or do you go as teams to organizations?
Well, yeah, the Grove doesn't have a campus, so we
Oh,
we
okay.
travel all over.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we have offices in Nevada, but in California, but no, we travel all over to go wherever the clients take us, and that's either a hotel, boardroom, or it's a big retreat center, or sometimes it's outside. It just depends on what the client needs and wants. And, we have sometimes a little say in where the meeting or the session will be. And other times it's like, it's in this room and the walls are made of this and deal with it, so.
Yeah. And now does that shifting gears a little bit into like the actual meeting, are you with AI or artificial intelligence really coming online, are you seeing kind of a shift in how people come together and meet and talk and gather information? And do you see some ripple effects in the work that you're doing with Grove?
Not as relates to AI. I mean, a lot of the enterprise clients are still putting together their AI task force, or figuring out who's going to be the person who leads the charge in the new frontier, and it's encouraging to see that, every time we have a conversation about AI, it's like, oh, I guess we're not as far behind as we thought, because everybody's kind of catching up to where everybody is. But that's not really affecting meeting spaces so much as it is affecting writing and storytelling and things like that right now. And
Oh yeah.
research, maybe.
Oh yeah, the research especially. I do a lot of my research with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
How about anyone else from the panel? What's your energy around AI? And it feels like, I mean, I can't remember exactly when I came on line, but it's in the last 12 months, it's really gotten to, there's a lot of people who are really using it a lot, both personally and professionally. Do any of you have any words of wisdom about AI and how it's being used with your business and your personal life?
Well, just because we've got Casey on the phone, I'm going to call out to him. So he and I did a workshop not too long ago where we did a World Cafe that had about 300 people in the audience. And so if you can imagine just how a World Cafe works, you have that many, sheets of paper that are coming out of it. And we actually used AI to sift through all of the data that these people wrote down using optical character recognition and a few other things just to suss out themes. So I mean, there's that. Lisa mentions in chat, I'm using AI for boring stuff like creating proposals and agreements. So there's always like that writing. But I've found making sense of tons of data and doing synthesis and binning and categorizing data coming from the participants is that's been a huge assist.
I will add that Mural, the enterprise licensing at Mural now allows for that at the click of a button, like cluster all your stickies into common themes, and they use that AI to generate that. And I think it's available in Miro as well.
That's amazing. Tanya or Muddy, have you had any experience with synthesizing using AI?
Yeah, I've done it in real time during conferences like what Brian was mentioning, or workshops where I don't know, things pivoted and there was not as much time for me personally to synthesize through a ton of sticky notes. So then using AI to snap photos of that and say, hey, what are the common themes? But whenever I do that sort of thing, I always make sure that I've tested that before so that I have the quality assurance that it's actually doing a job that I can say is quality and that I'm capturing the themes accurately. So that's really key. Yeah.
Now, how do you test that? Like, how do you prepare yourself to use that?
Doing a lot of tests with my team itself, just mock sort of workshop settings where we're gathering sticky notes from ourselves and just kind of trialing it and testing and then quality testing that. Yeah.
That's nice. Muddy, what do you think?
Well, I'm inspired. I love working with Post-it notes. So little did I know that AI can help me with that. So yeah, I have not done a lot. Actually, in the visual space, it's primarily been kind of writing and text-based work with AI. So now I've got my work cut out for me. Yeah,
I
looking
know.
forward to.
I did a job with Terrell Hansen, who's on the call here. We had to synthesize, I don't know what, Terrell, like 300 or 400 Post-it notes. And I wish this panel discussion happened a month ago because that would have been really amazing. Well, and so, speaking of technology, and Tanya, I know this is really solidly in your neighborhood with augmented reality and virtual reality. Can you speak specifically about those two things? And I will say that in 2019, Terrell and I were in the room with you when there was a conversation in open space about VR and AR, and you were on fire with electricity, and it was so fun to be in the room with you as you were asking questions, and then to see through, the last 5-6 years how your practice has used these technologies to really enrich the experience. So for those of you who don't know, you're about to have a treat here because we'd love to hear how you do your stuff, Tanya.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'm glad it's funny you remember that. That was 2019 IFVP Montclair, and Brian was actually, I think, in that space too, where we were talking about AR, and it really just kicked things off for my explorations of it and testing. But AR and VR, Brian also does a lot of VR work too. It's something that we're experimenting with and exploring and also using in actual client events and workshops and trying to do it in a way where it's applicable for deepening knowledge and deepening understanding of a topic. I think that's really critical with anything that you're rolling out or testing with technology, is that it's actually enhancing the experience of the knowledge and isn't just a gimmick, that it is deepening that experience and understanding of concepts. So that's generally how we're using it the most. So if there's a graphic recording that you've done in analog, we can create it so that each different image on that graphic is enhanced with augmented reality, so that when someone goes up to the graphic, they can use their phone and scan across it, and different videos or images or text pops up, or links to additional information and resources. It's like annotating the graphic recording in real time. We do this. This isn't something we plan ahead of time, other than knowing how to work with the tool. It can be done in the space in real time as well. So our Instagram actually has probably the most examples of different ways that we've used augmented reality in these spaces, but it really is, I'll just pop that in the chat here too. It's a tool, and there's lots of different apps out there that allow you to use augmented reality and test it out yourself. Probably the most accessible and free one is worldcast.io. And I'll put that in the chat too, worldcast.io. It's a free application hosted online by, I think, IBM and Microsoft are the ones that own it, to test and experiment with augmented reality in a simple way. Yeah.
Would it be hard, or like, what is the amount of energy it would take to get up to speed with using those technologies? Do you need do I need to call you and be like, help me
yeah,
out?
yeah, definitely. We do consults on how to roll this out, and it really can scale depending on how complicated your project is. If you can do it really simply, like with the WorldCast IO that I put in the chat there, you can go more full on with something that's more stable, that allows you to do multiple images from one event, as we call them in augmented reality, using ZapWorks is the program that we use. Other folks are using Eighth Wall. That's more of a program that allows you to do things a little bit fancier, a lot more complicated. But as with anything, it's dip your toe in and just go as far as you want, and as far as you need with your projects, for sure.
That's amazing. Well, your work is so beautiful, and I follow you on Instagram, and every time you do, I'm just so amazed. I mean, I know how it works sort of, but then I'm just always so blown away. Now, Brian, you shared with me you did some cool stuff at a event recently. Do you want to even share your screen and show us what you did? Because it's a little hard to even imagine.
I'm always doing cool stuff. To what cool stuff are you referring?
Oh, it's the augmented reality, or is it augmented reality where you showed me the photograph the other day. That's it.
This one?
That's it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this was okay, so I don't know. I love Tanya because she's always like challenging me to, do more than what I think I can do.
Brian, oh yeah, perfect.
Is that better?
Just-
Now I'm
yeah.
out of the way. Well, yeah, I know you want to see this, not me. So what you're looking at here is a virtual reality, and it was, so the difference, just very briefly, virtual reality is you're completely in a virtual space. You've got no pass through or view of the room that you're in. Whereas augmented reality, you can actually see the room that you're in. All right. And oftentimes you hear the word mixed reality, and that's a much looser definition to everything I just said. Okay. Mixed reality can be used to encompass virtual and augmented reality. So what you're looking at here is, as near as I can figure, because I just checked with Tanya, who's the other person that's doing this, I think that this is one of the only times that VR was used in the room with a group during an event. So we hooked it up to a gaming laptop, and actually Trina, who's on the call with me, like, we did this as basically a tandem graphic recording where she was dropping in assets into a shared folder that I could see in the headset. And then I would drop those assets into a three-dimensional space, and then I would basically trace and transcribe using them as reference images. And I think Trina, remind me, I think we did this was like a 6-hour event, right? Which was a long time to be in VR. But I think it worked pretty well. Most of the time, the other times that I've used VR, it's been after the fact, or it's been designed or drawn out in the calm of, my studio, and not at a live event. So this one was drawn live. I'm about to publish a case study on it, just because, again, I thought it was cool. So if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, connect with me, and you'll see that in a couple of days.
Were there any bodily effects from being in the headset that long?
But I got sweaty, but other than that, no, not really.
But
Oh,
nothing like
did you have a
migraines or vision or anything like that?
No, but I used to play a lot of video games as a kid, so
Oh.
it was kind of an easy transition. My parents were always like, "You're gonna rot your brain playing those games." I think it worked well.
My 13-year-old put me in a VR headset once, and I was like, whoa, let me out. I can't.
Yeah, right.
Like, it was really bad.
So, and Brian, share with us the photograph so we have some context about what this, I did not know what to expect when you showed this to me. I was really blown away.
Sure. Give me a hot second to find it. Okay.
Yes, you will. So what Brian did here is he's drawing in the air, which, I feel like for me would be a very unusual experience because I'm so used to pushing against a board. And so the idea that you were able to capture this for 6 hours and do such an amazing work is awesome.
Yeah. So that's
There
what
he
looks
is.
like in the room.
And he's not alone, by the way.
No.
That's what I said. I was like, are you even at an event?
Yeah, we had a bunch
There
of
you
people
go.
on with this.
There's your people. Oh, that's so great. Joran or Muddy, do you have any experience with VR, AR, MR, MXR, all the R's, all the reality?
I'll let Muddy go because I just said in the chat, when my kid put that thing on me, I tried walking down a set of stairs in the game and I nearly fell. My stomach went up in my heart and I was like, I nearly fell
Whoa.
over. So it was crazy.
No, I haven't used this in real life. In fact, the Brian had a setup at an IFVP event years ago,
Yeah.
and I remember kind of trying it out and seeing that. And one of the and it even raised a question for me with this, and to harken back to what Tanya said is thinking about how the technology enhances the understanding, enhances the experience, enhances the collaboration, and I'm curious, kind of to the extent that this VR. I mean, one of the benefits is kind of unlimited canvas, right? Like you're not gonna run into the space limitations that you would with an analog. But I'm curious because what's neat is I pulled up the Sketchpad, right? So I could see this graphic and kind of manipulate it, move around. And as I look at it, it's essentially a long, relatively flat graphic as I see it, right? Or as at least I'm experiencing it. So I'm curious kind of the advantage of using VR as a medium to do this. Kind of yeah, Brian, be interested to get
Yeah.
your take on that.
Sure. Let me speak to that. So that was where I landed with it. Now, this was a VR graphic recording of another Nova Scribes, and I did it sort of in the round. I had the mental model that I was inside of that sphere in Las Vegas, But the problem is that it's not very easy to navigate if you don't have a VR headset yourself.
Right.
And so I ended up making the choice to record in kind of 2.5D, right? So it would still read if you were looking at it on a flat screen, but you could also pivot it around and look at it at angles, and you would see that there was depth attached to it. So that was more from a legibility after the fact.
And I remember when you and I were talking about it, that IFVP, one of the things that we were exploring with it is having more of a physical space that had kind of different rooms or different kind of containers or compartments. And so almost a combination of the two, where you may have this kind of overall floor plan of the conversation, for instance, but you might be able to step into kind of more dynamic spaces. So
that's what excites me, is that when these things start to keystone from these products or platforms that already exist, like back in the day, it used to be Second Life, people were building virtual environments, and now it's more of the 8-bit approach, and it's like Gather or, whatever those things. But it is even back to even turntable.fm felt like you were in a little club with the DJ at the front of the room, like when those platforms start catching up with VR, and now you're able to be immersed in a space, that's going to be great. But it's like, there's no iteration of these products into this space. Everybody's building something new and separate from, right? Like Second Life didn't evolve. Gather's not moving into VR. It's staying flat, right? Well, at least that we know of. So it's like, how are we going to retrofit? People spend years building these virtual environments. So how are we going to retrofit VR to these 2D built environments when the time comes,
I'm curious to hear what Tanya specifically has to say to it, because I think of all of us, Tanya, you've been really, really good at, that connective tissue between, doing VR because it's cool, but also making it really accessible to the people that you work with.
Well, I appreciate that. It is, I think part of it is as well, and this was sort of alluded to with Muddy and Joran, what you were saying as well. Headsets are still exclusive to those who can afford it and who have access to it. And until that starts becoming more mainstream, like our phones have become for ourselves, and that's why AR tends to be more accessible at this point. I think that will happen. It's just a matter of when. And it's not to say that there aren't people or organizations that are not working in VR. There's engineers that are designing entirely in VR, trainings that are happening for medical professionals entirely in VR. This is the reality for a lot of organizations right now. And so moving into these spaces is an opportunity for those of us who are wanting to explore it and experiment with how we can storytell. To the point as well around these spaces being more three-dimensional, it's how we have to think about how we storytell these things. This is a graphic recording I did in VR during a live session that was virtual, so not in a real space, Brian, to your point, but it takes a lot of practice to draw in 3D depth. It can't emphasize enough how much work it takes to get to this, and hours to do this. And as well, considering how we're telling this story, this is a Sketchfab, again, another version of it that I did in real time, and how we can tell a story in more of a three-dimensional realm by going around this goal-setting mountain changes how we perceive the content too. So again, it comes down to understanding the audience and what makes the most sense for the storytelling that we're doing as well. But the opportunities are huge, and they do exist for those of us who want to play in these spaces.
I couldn't help but notice, Tanya, that the arrows on the floor, were you literally on all fours, like crawling on the carpet, drawing the arrows?
Yeah, it's physically exhausting. Yes, it's totally different. We call analog paper graphic recording or foam board graphic recording exhausting physically. This is like next level. So yeah, it's questions as well as to how sustainable it is physically to do these too.
Yeah, I can imagine a future where there's teams of people, right? Like sometimes when we would graphic record in tandem, we'd have somebody do the follow behind and do the lettering, or just follow behind and do the color fill or whatever, right? Like I can imagine, and that's just one square, right?
Yeah.
So I can imagine these virtual environments, you need like, you would have to scope for like a minimum of a team of 3 or something that you have to build that out live.
Exactly.
So
And
do you have to have the VR goggles on in order to follow along, or can it be projected onto a screen?
Yeah, Matthew McGain, who is of the sketch group in Australia, has done it in that format you just described, where he had the goggles on and he had a screen so that people could watch what he was doing in real time. Pretty cool stuff. And Brian, you've got an example up there too. So there are ways of sharing it if people are not in the virtual space. You can also share these spaces. Any of the Sketchfab examples that we've shown you can be viewed in VR if you have a headset. So that's the other great piece. And Heather had a great comment in the chat there that maybe the video output is another way of sharing it in a 2D format, like the video I edited together showing this graphic recording too. So there's options, there's different ways of working.
Yeah, I don't know if it would detract from the programming. I guess it would depend on the event or the engagement, but I can imagine a GR station set up fishbowl style where you're invited, participants are invited to step over and put on a pair of guest goggles and like watch the artist work while it's
100%.
happening or something. That would be
100%.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, and Heather actually had a really good point too. For those of you watching, since we have such a robust conversation going on, if you go up into the upper right-hand corner and you click on the view, there is if you're not aware of this, there's a multi-speaker view. And that's a really nice option to click if you would like to see more than one speaker speak at the same time. Oh, well, that is
spotlight the 6 of us.
What's that?
Can we spotlight the 6 of us?
I don't know, Brian. Can we
I'll work on that in just a minute. But the one last thing I wanted to say before we move off this, topic, you were talking about, goggles are still kind of exclusive and a limiting factor. And I think that is the case and will continue to be the case to some degree. However, smartphones have become ubiquitous, and I could see Apple Vision Pro becoming more and more common. And again, the version that's out right now is version 1. It's the worst it'll ever be. It'll just keep getting better and better. And the experience in my understanding, I haven't used them myself, but my experience is that's been, it has alleviated, Jordan, some of the experience that you were talking about of that kind of sensory deprivation, that because it's augmented and you can see through to some degree and still have that connection to your physical space. You're not only in this virtual space. It actually has a little bit of a less learning curve, or kind of less. So anyway, I could see Apple Vision Pro becoming something that helps normalize this, or at least helps it bring more mainstream. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, and I love the storytelling nature of this, where it helps people to understand a story in a new way. So Tanya, like, is there a book that talks about how to tell stories in VR, or how someone can help others learn their learned experience through using this technology? Is there like anything out there that talks about it?
No book specifically for our realm of storytelling, visual communication. I would say that some of I've been to a number of online workshops around game storytelling, and gaming storytelling, those that are doing, startup games in VR, where they're just using a basic budget to storytell. And some of these conferences and workshops online have talked about flow through and segmenting of stories and how the environment space works in a three-dimensional way. So a lot of those principles apply to this world. So it is 3D storytelling.
Tanya, I have to say that feels like what they call an opportunity in the marketplace.
100% it is. I would write a book if I had the time. Yeah.
Well, and I think the big elephant is in the room is this technology going to put us out of business?
Nah.
I mean, the AI stuff is interesting. Philip, oh gosh, I can't pronounce his last name. Gao. I think he's IFVP in China, was exploring some. Yes, he was exploring different apps for doing graphic recording. So AI doing graphic recording, and that is interesting, and of course, kind of scary for some folks. But I also do think that it's important that graphic recording isn't commoditized in how we're doing the work. And sure, fine, an app can do it. I don't care. Those aren't the clients I'm interested in anyways. So the ones like what Jordan was saying, and Brian and Muddy, like the ones that we're helping strategically, I mean, that's the space that we want to live in and work in. And that's where we're needed. So, yeah.
And there's already been a little ebb and flow with digital, right? Like there was like, oh, are you going to come with Procreate, and can you do it virtually and we don't have to fly you in? But then there was then there was a little bit of a renaissance to be like, I wish we could just have an old-fashioned artist in the room, because everybody really enjoyed that. So there was like the pendulum swung the other way for a little while, so I think it's just going to be that ebb and flow.
Well, and the human connection can never be underestimated. So as much as technology comes and goes and changes the way we live, we are human because we connect with humans. So being able to make the human connection front and center and have the technology be a benefit to the relationship and the connection is really what's going to make it the richest experience. And then also, being aware, like if the next time, or if I ever have the opportunity to do something with augmented reality or virtual reality, and I'm going to fly Tanya in and be like, help me with this thing. So I think that there's like opportunities to still have a robust business And then also be able to collaborate with people, because in our visual practice, I really think the name of the game is collaboration. We all work alone together and all together alone. And so I think being able to support each other and see new ways to collaborate is really, really part of the future of our industry. So wow, that was awesome. We could have just had a panel discussion on that.
One of the
So,
things I think that's interesting is how rapidly AI has evolved, or AI has developed and evolved. I mean, the first visual synthesized image generated images, right, were terrible with hands. And it's like, that was like 9 months ago. I mean, and I saw an example from Marquez Brownlee, an MKBHD video today showing some AI generated videos that are like, you can't tell which ones are AI. But I don't think it's going to replace us. My wife is a realtor, and she was just saying at one of her workshops recently, they said, AI is not going to replace realtors, but realtors who can harness AI are going to outperform those that can't. And I think that's the same in our field. There's tasks that AI is well suited for. And now that I've learned about this whole sticky note thing, all bets are off, right? Like if it can help me synthesize some of those and let me focus on that translation into, putting this in a framework that people can understand and visuals that connect with people. So anyway, that's my take on it.
Well, and it's a great point, Muddy. And for people coming into the industry, what would be some advice for folks who are really interested in visual practice, maybe have a little bit of practice doing it, are super excited to be able to use it in whatever they're doing, and maybe even become a full-time graphic facilitator, graphic recorder, visual practice? What would be your advice for someone coming into the industry?
Brian, go for it.
Except Brian's going to interrupt you. And
well, he was on mute, so I thought he was done. Actually, Muddy, you go first. That's all right.
No, I was just going to throw it over to you anyway, because I saw that I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
All right, thank you. Well, so I think that here's the thing. We all learn how to do this in some way, right? We learn by watching other people. We learn by going to the Grove. We learn in a bunch of different ways. And I think that there's a tendency, once you've learned how to do it and you're pretty good at it, to unintentionally take on a whole lot of assumed constraints. I remember taking a look at one of the best charts that I ever saw in my life. I was like, how in God's name did you draw that? And the guy who drew it said, oh, well, this was the final one. I'm like, final one? What are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I took all of my charts home and recomposed and redrew them. And the first thing in my mind was, oh, well, that's cheating. There is no cheating. There's no such thing as cheating, right? Whether you're drawing from reference images or you're using AI to help you out. I mean, let me just tell you, if there ever is something that comes out that helps graphic recorders and visual facilitators do what we do, I'm going to be one of the first people to buy it. I mean, I've got AI helping me out as much as I possibly can because I need all the help I can get, right? And so, if we can be in a place where we're using these tools and being on the cutting edge of it, I think it's just, we're ahead of the curve. There's no assumed constraints. There's no cheating. Use all the tools you can possibly get.
So Tanya, what do you say to new graphic recorders that come to you and work for you? Because I know you hire contractors and also employees as well.
Like in terms of getting into graphic recording and the industry as a whole?
Well, say for instance, specifically a green graphic recorder. What sort of, do you send them somewhere to learn something? Are there books, your favorite books? What's the path? What would be a good path for someone that's new to like graphic recording? We'll start with that.
Absolutely. I often am sending them to the IFVP, specifically the core competencies work that's being done. It is tremendously helpful, and it is such a good foundation for anyone new in this space, and it sets professional standards for our work, which I think is really important. Not to say that we're restricted to those standards. Everyone has a different philosophy coming into this work. and the folks that they're working for, but it is a really good foundation. And that's often what I'm sending. I actually have like a standard email because we get so many reach outs from new graphic recorders that has different links to resources and my favorite books, my favorite people teaching in this space, like Christina Merkley, like Sam Brad, like Brandy Agerbeck, like any of those, The Grove as well, of course. Those are such good foundations and people who have years of experience in this.
Now, do you do any personal training yourself, or are you just too busy?
Too busy. I also do mentorship though for specific folks that I'm working with and are working as contractors for us too. So long-term relationship building and also helping them get into different technologies they want to explore too. So yeah.
That's great. Joran, do you have beware of constraints? That's cute. Do you have any advice for someone wanting to follow in your footsteps, maybe even joining the Grove?
I mean, if like totally green.
Oh, probably if it's something with the Grove, you'd have to be a little bit down the road, I think. So,
Yeah, I don't know. You know, in writing the last book on facilitation, there was a lot. We kind of split it up into these competencies around facilitation. One of them was like, you know, humor versus jokes. Like one of those things rests in the intersubjective space and is a cultural language, and one is a tool that you have in your pocket and you have to pull out after reading the room. You know, it's like just developing sensitivity to the use of self in group spaces is a big thing. And from public speaking, you know, there's different hacks I wrote about, like get there early, walk the perimeter of the room, so that makes it feel a little smaller and you have a little more sense of ownership over the space. You know, and just maybe just going into public spaces like a Toastmasters or finding a nonprofit or a small business that's maybe owned by a family member or something, that like facilitate their staff meeting once a month or whatever, you know, like just, it's kind of that, you know, as you're almost like a artist or a, you know, musician coming up, it's like, yeah, go down and do the open mic, like go play a gig for free a couple times. You know, I'm not saying work for free. I'm not saying like put your website out and then take jobs for free. I'm saying if you're learning the craft, then go actually learn the craft. Don't just read about it. Go do the thing and then come up with your rate and then charge for people for it.
I love it. I love that answer. And that actually inspires me. When I first got started, I was with, I was doing, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the House of Genius. It's a group that meets once a month. It's loosely organized and there are chapters all over. So if you do a search for House of Genius in your area, and you offer to graphic record for them, they will freak out.
Mhm.
And it's great. I mean, everybody's volunteer. So, there's no question about like, getting paid or doing work for free or, what that is. But the House of Genius is a monthly thing I go to. I've been graphic recording it for 6-7 years. And we are the Phoenix chapter is the only one that's had a consistent graphic recorder at it. And it is so much fun. And the one thing that I find great about doing those kind of events is that it's sort of practice. It keeps my markers moving, like the juicy and moving. And I also get to experiment a lot. So when you're in an environment where you are with your other, if you're in an environment where there are people volunteering and you're volunteering your talents, that you get to really experiment. So you get to do some like wacky stuff that you would never probably pull out of your bag with an actual paid client. So that would be my advice, and I think that's on the tails of your great advice, Joran. So thank you.
And Laura just mentioned in the chat something I was going to bring up, which was creative mornings, which is they have a lot of those happening in a lot of cities. And really just go to any of your like Google your town incubator small business. Like there's your local chamber will be doing something like a 1 million cups, small business pitch session thing. And God, that's fast paced, like they happen frequently and they're hungry to partner with someone who can provide that service, but also it immerses you and connects you with businesses. And that's killing two birds with one stone, right? That's getting you plugged into the business community of people who are going to be like, oh, could you also visualize our strategic plan or whatever? Like that's then going to turn into actual revenue.
Yeah, that's true. Every month I get a request.
To Jordan's point, when I first got started, I did a freebie for our local chamber of commerce, and that led to $250,000 worth of work on my first year. It was a huge move just to do one pro bono job.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, chambers of commerce are really great. Community events, anything creative, like Tech Week, anything around technology, people love that. Yeah, so that's really, really, really incredible. Well, thank you so much.
I've got a few related components. The first is related. For me, it's about lowering the bar. When I first started this practice, so when I volunteered to show up for free, it's like, yeah, it's okay if it sucks. It's free, right? So it really lowered the pressure for me. And what I realized is people loved it, right? Like, and I would actually create a poster next to it that said like, hi, I'm Muddy and I'm not going for perfect. I'm going for awesome. Right. And just to let people know, like, it's not going to be perfect. Right. And that helped lower the bar. The second piece of advice, and this happened the first IFVP conference I went to, and I saw some people drawing some amazing artwork. And I stood there and looked at it, was like, wow, I can't draw like that. And it was initially very intimidating. And then we had to go up on stage and give a piece of advice. And what I realized is the advice I gave is if you want to compare yourself to a blank page, because if you don't draw, that's the alternative. And so for me, this reminds me that when I show up, it's showing up to serve others. And so it's not about me. It's not about, as Brandy talks about, it's not about art as a noun. Or drawing as a noun, the drawing. It's about drawing as a verb, right? Yeah. Creating that for others. And then the last piece of advice that I would share is find a place where you have support and community to cheer each other on, where it's okay to be a beginner, this whole beginner mindset. And I have to give credit to Diane Bleck, who was one of my mentors, and she had a Facebook group that was called Doodle Girl and Friends at the time. And we would all come in as beginners, share our artwork, and totally love on each other. It was like, oh, that's awesome. And having that community, because like my wife, God bless her, but she's not a visual practice, right? She's not the right audience. She would look at that and be like, yeah, I don't get it. Right. But having a community where people did get it gave me the space to get better until I could go and share that with wider people. So those three pieces of advice: lower the bar, serve first, and find a supportive community.
And I would also like to add that in all of my years of doing this, I have never had someone walk up to me and go, yeah, that's mediocre. I did have a bunch of lawyers correct my spelling or my acronyms, but really that was the worst. So the thing to hold on to as a new graphic recorder, someone who's up in front of the room, but really as a graphic recorder, is that what you're doing is creating magic in the room. And you're capturing and synthesizing and drawing it. And then, you can't think of other people, as Muddy says, like, don't compare, because your gift is your gift. And it's the magic that you're creating in the room that is really what rises above, anything that could happen with with AI or with no one, or if someone was just like writing on a chalkboard. Like, the fact that you are capturing and drawing and synthesizing and thinking in a way that most people don't is really, truly magical, and everyone appreciates it. Yeah. So, speaking of professionals, and I would like to move into the idea of professional networks. So there's NOVA Scribes, there's IFVP, there's EVP, there's groups all around the world who are getting together to support each other, to learn. IFVP just launched the forum, which if you are not a member, it is tops. It's so fun. You can ask a question and literally within minutes you will have answers, and really amazing answers too. And so the question I'd like to ask is, how do you envision the professional networks and communities evolving to support the practitioners in the future? So, like, how might all of us as our individual groups, NOVA Scribes and IFVP and EVP, how might we all work together to support a broader purpose? And also I might ask you, which one of those are you a member of as well? So we know. And any others that I didn't list too. Brian, how about you with NOVA Scribes? Because I know you with NOVA Scribes.
Yeah, I mean, Nova Scribes is breakfast of champions, isn't it? So I mean, I'll tell you honestly. So we put Nova Scribes together out of pure laziness. I didn't want to have to drive into DC to be a part of DCGF at the time, which is now defunct, unfortunately. But you know, during the pandemic, we grew to, I guess we've got about 1,600 members now. That's not to say everybody shows up at all the meetups, but you know, that's how many people are there. It again, it's a free and open forum. I find it to be a really great place to demo methods. Like I also teach a lot of workshops. And so if you've got a workshop and you kind of want to kick the tires on it to do a pilot, Nova Scribes is a great place to do that. It's also a really good place for you to get some experience in front of some friendly people. In terms of the other communities that I'm a part of, clearly IFVP, it's the gift that keeps on giving. MAFN, the Mid-Atlantic Facilitators Network, in my area anyway. By the way, a lot of people don't know this. NOVA as in Northern Virginia, but I think we may have graduated beyond that. You know, none of us are, I'm the only one in Northern Virginia on this panel. But yeah, the Mid-Atlantic Facilitators Network, the IAF, the International Association of Facilitators is the other one. And I'll also put a plug in there for CBODN, the Chesapeake Bay Organizational Development Network. And I'll drop all those into chat.
And then how do you, is there a crossroads? Could there be anything, or could in the future where there's like a big tent where everybody gets together?
Sarah, you know something, don't you? All right. So this is we're still back in the napkin right now. Right now, Nova Scribes, IFVP, MAFN, and CBODN are thinking about doing one big tent conference. We're looking at dates in August right now. Thinking about like it's going to be a 3-day thing, but this is still very back of the napkin. We're thinking about it. You know, we got to make sure that the numbers make sense.
Thank you. Thank you. So we'll wait for more information on that. How about the rest of the panel? How do you think, what are your thoughts about the various groups that we have out there and how we might be able to come together to all grow and benefit?
I would add a plug for Douglas Ferguson and Voltage Control based out of Austin. And he's got a group called Facilitation Lab that meets. And I was going to that pretty religiously a couple of years ago. And it really is a great community. And they're definitely a system. Voltage Control is definitely a system of they train and certify facilitators as well. So it's a lot of their products and offerings. But it's really a great group. And we've at the Grove have just recently launched, not around graphic facilitation, but around one of our core offerings, team performance. We now have a team performance community of practice. And we have a free monthly call that gathers with the people who are workshop graduates and alumni and survey administrators and enterprise leads and anybody who's a team performance person. Every month it's a free call, and it's been really great to share notes and best practices around that framework that everybody's really passionate about using with their teams. And that's, I think, where I not only envision, but really secretly hope that where these communities will become more niche. Like I would love to have sub-community, like smaller communities, but dedicated to once a month, let's talk about how we're going to focus on our self-care as facilitators and consultants, or, something based around specific tools. I don't know, but I think the more fragmented and the more specific and more niche is where we're headed, and also where we need to go to get the breadth and depth of support.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I wish there was a manual on how to create a microcosm of that. So um, it would be easier to put it together. Because for like an IFVP, we have regionals coming up this coming year in 2025, and we ask the regions to gather and do something around their community, around visual practice. Brian has and the team out there in Washington area have done it a couple times. It's been really amazing. And I would love to be able to guide or have a guide to send out to our regional or our membership to help them create regional uh, uh, gatherings. And I love your idea that like it could just be about self-care. It doesn't even need about be about like using the marker.
Sure.
It's like, hey, we're in this region and this happens to be, it could be affected by the environment, like the weather. It could be anything.
Right.
So I love that. And I'd love to continue that conversation even beyond this. And Tanya, I feel like I interrupted you.
Oh, no,
I
you
got
did not.
excited.
It's
I
all
was like,
good. I'm excited too. I'm just going to echo and say ditto for what Joran was saying in terms of niching down your community. I can't like encourage that enough. It's been so valuable for me personally. I'm the only Canadian on this panel. And our contexts are different. The conversations we're hearing, the issues that we're capturing are different, as is any other region. And I think that is so important to have a space to connect with your local colleagues, to talk about what we're hearing and how we're handling it and what we're doing differently. I think that is so valuable. So anyone on this call that is in community, create your own community as well.
and then reach out for
Yeah.
ideas. Like everyone here on the panel, and even a lot of people who are just joining us today, not necessarily on the panel, also have really great ideas for community and getting together, and ideas for how to create belonging in your own area.
I saw, can I just interject real quick? I saw it was like a short Instagram reel. It was Simon Sinek in conversation with someone, and I forget who it was, but they were talking about this trend. Oh, it was Trevor Noah and Simon Sinek talking about this trend in relationships where we don't have as many friendships anymore. And so we put the importance of getting our physical needs met and our social needs met, and maybe going out to eat or going to a movie with people who like the same movie, all on our significant other. And that then becomes, that all of a sudden there's this set of criteria that's lumped onto this one person, that if they don't meet all of those things, then, well, something's wrong, right? When we used to get it satisfied by an array of people. And the same, Simon Sinek was like, oh, it's the same thing in businesses. We used to have all these places that were like our religious spaces where we found purpose and meaning, and our social spaces where we would gather and we could talk politics. And now we want our workplace to satisfy all these things for us. And if it doesn't, we're unhappy, right? And so, I mean, this just goes back to like, we are embedded in communities. You all are facilitators. Go forth and facilitate. Like, go forth and create these circles of people that gather in community and create meaning. That's what we're here for.
Yes. The sense of belonging is really what we're all looking for. And I feel like I found it today. And I found it every time I gather with NOVA Scribes and IFVP, and just chatting with each one of you over email or a Zoom call. Having the intention of creating friendships and developing a sense of belonging is really important, especially for our industry, because so many of us are independent solopreneurs. So it's really wonderful to hear that, because that's really great advice. Thank you.
And Brian, did you just is that the whole video interview in the chat?
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
I hadn't seen the whole thing. I'll have to
Oh,
go
it's
watch
worth it. Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah.
So Brian, you just put into chat that very particular interview.
Mhm.
You are lightning fast.
No, that's Google, man. That wasn't me.
That's good use of AI right there.
It sure is. It sure is.
Well, and I don't think it was mentioned yet, but even the Facebook graphic facilitation group, 17,000 people, continues to be one of the groups that I love being a part of online, and get to learn from and get to share in that. And so the power of this little dog is bothering me right now, but the power of being in professional communities, right? So I love what George's talking about kind of creating community in all these different kinds of places, not trying to have just one person satisfy all those needs, but one of those places is this professional network of like-minded people. And I love the playful nature of an innovative nature of the visual practitioner community. And so all the times I get together, I get so inspired by all of you. And that carries me through when I am off kind of being my own representative of visual practice, working with clients and others. So love having this kind of place to come back and learn and get inspired. So thank you to those that are leading these and helping carry these, because it's a lot of work to foster and shepherd a community. So thank you.
You're welcome. And that just warms my heart. I really, I love what you said, Muddy. It really makes the energy, flow of, actually having these conversations and being open and vulnerable to sharing these ideas and thoughts across. Oh, and there's your puppy. Is that the one who's giving you some love?
Yes, my oldest daughter moved back home with 2 cats into the attic, and so now the dog is like, I just must go up and see those cats. So anyway, when she gets it in her head.
That's wonderful. Well, it's been an amazing conversation, and I presume that we've got some questions out in our participants here. If you have any questions you would like to ask that are related to what we've been talking about, or maybe we didn't cover something that you're curious about, please put your question into the chat and precede it by 3 question marks so it's easy to find. And then we can see what else we can talk about for the next 30 minutes, or maybe 20 minutes. So I have a question, and this is maybe just a kind of a side question, is I presume that all of you use Neuland markers. Can I assume that we all use Neuland markers? Okay. So I have been having this interesting thing happen where my black marker gets kind of gunked up, and I've been working a lot on foam core, and I think it might have something to do with the foam core. So in your experience with graphic recording or graphic facilitating with Neuland markers, and I don't think it's a problem with Neuland. I think it's maybe Neuland on foam core, but do you know what it is, and how do you fix it?
Is it like a black booger on the board?
Yeah. Yeah, it sort of like
Yeah.
just stops flowing. And so it gets and I think that foam core actually has a very fine clay surface on it, and that might be what's clogging it, but I don't know that for a fact. So do you have that experience, and when you're in the middle of graphic recording and all of a sudden that
Yeah,
happens.
I think
What,
Brian
what do
just
you
said
do?
it. Yeah, the glossy was, yeah, we've had experience
Yeah.
with the glossy stuff doing that.
So then do you use uncoded, just uncoded foam core then?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'll change to uncoded. We do have a question here from Miranda. Have the sectors that most seek graphic recording changed in the last 5 or so years? Have the sectors that have most seek graphic recording changed in the last 5 years?
So there's a really, really great thing that the IFVP does, which is their annual survey. And I believe they take a look at that. Let me see if I can find the most recent one. But that has been a really good lens on sort of the state of the industry that's out there.
The Business Barometer, I think it's specific.
Barometer. Yeah, I'll see if I can find it.
Okay, well, in 2.5 seconds, Brian will have that answer.
Maybe 6.
From your experiences, your personal experiences, have you the sectors that hire you, or have sectors stopped working with you in the last 5 years and new ones have come on? What's been your experience with your shift in clientele, or have you had a shift in clientele?
I'm trying for the life of me to think of something that it's not there anymore, or, yeah, was there or is there, wasn't there and is now. It's always been these kind of fast growing startups in tech or healthcare, or I don't know. Yeah, it's just kind of finance and I don't know.
From
It
my
feels like
experience, it
pretty
is
same.
more kind of like how the budgets are. So it's sort of
Yeah.
kind of comes and goes with the money. So I find that organizations that work with grants and have grants, you can be pretty much, it's like, okay, it's a year grant, you're going to have work for a year. And then if they get another grant, you'll, maybe get lucky and continue to work with them. So I've found working with like universities and not-for-profits that work with grants are pretty stable. I imagine that I mean, I don't know about airlines, but airlines have just really, just I don't know, have been having a really hard time. So I guess like industries that you can tell from the news would be the ones that are really having a tough time.
And I think part of that too, like there's this thing, and I'm sure everybody has experienced it, where like your favorite person or your contact at an organization leaves and goes somewhere else, and then you maybe lose them as a client, maybe you don't, but eventually they get hired somewhere else, and then they bring you with them to this new place, but they don't change career. Like it's still the same segment, there's still the same kind of role, so that keeps you in the same industry too, so there's this kind of bubble that's created because it's kind of like coaching. You hire coaches you trust, you hire people, you've become the facilitator or the consultant for that team, for that organization, and so you follow where they go. And if they ever do something outside of that bubble, it's like, oh, that doesn't feel like us, or that doesn't look like us, if it's visual, right? Like you become kind of intrinsic to their brand in a way. So yeah, you kind of exist in these bubbles, client bubbles, if you will, that you kind of follow you around.
Well, and I think that speaks to uh, staying in constant contact
Yeah.
with people and following up and building the relationship. Like you say, the trust is really, really important. Um,
I think the two other areas where I've seen more graphic recording, because I've seen more conversation, is around some of the emerging technologies like AI, and around some of the intercultural and DEI kinds of conversations, and just kind of more gender awareness and those kinds of conversations. And again, I don't think it's because graphic recording is new to those conversations. I just think those conversations are happening more, and so I see graphic recording happening in those spaces more.
And they're important what you're describing are important conversations, right?
Yeah, and I added a question in the chat about, and in fact, that was the subtext in my mind, was where do we see this being needed in the future? And it seems like when conversations have more gravity, are more important conversations, I believe it shows the value, because as we know, when people can see the conversation, their understanding goes so much deeper, so much faster, and those conversations become more productive, more open, and people, in my experience, can find agreement quicker and can see new perspectives quicker. And so, yes, that I think it's important to have visual practice in those important conversations.
Do you feel like when I guess speaking specifically of graphic recording, do you think graphic recording has actually grown as an industry, or what percentage has it grown as an industry in the last 10, 15 years? Because I'm always struck by when I go into a room, and if it's small enough, I'll ask them, like, who has seen graphic recording before? And in a group of like 30 or 40 people, maybe two. And that just surprises me that, we've been doing this for decades and still, and I know that there's, new people in the industry and they change and we're still a little bit niche. Like, how can we, or how does it happen where we can actually be represented in more rooms so we aren't kind of this like new novel thing for most people?
Interesting. I found the exact opposite has been the case for me in
Oh,
terms of
okay, great.
the
That's
space.
awesome.
It's more, I have to do so much less client education than I did 15 years ago.
Oh, good.
It's tremendous. And in terms of our field of work, it's exploded in supporting Indigenous gatherings in Canada. The demand is huge and there's not enough people to support it. And so it really depends what spaces you're working in, I think, and how educated the clients are. But from my experience, which we exclusively work in healthcare, climate, and Indigenous gatherings, so many of those clients are well informed as to what it is, and I don't have to convince them, which is nice. Yeah.
Well, and so I think I owe you a thank you, because I've only been in this since 2018. And what I found is if I have to educate someone, it's so far of a leap that it would be years before they could figure out how to use it, get the budget and that sort of thing. And so most of my work now, people are like, yep, I want it. Here's the check, come show up, done. And so us now owe you all who have been around for many years a debt of gratitude for really paving the way. And
Also,
so
I just want to give a shout out to Thor Ragnarok, the movie, which was the really big leap forward in mainstreaming graphic recording, where he was giving the big war rally cry pep talk and was interrupted by the squeak, 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 and the camera pans over and there's this guy graphic recording his pep talk. I was like, yes, a win for representation.
That's amazing. I'll have to watch that. Can we put it into the chat so I can easily find it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we're coming up on time. And so I want to give a heartfelt thank you, massive gratitude, huge hearts for all of you coming today to talk about all these subjects. And then all of the group of you, I see there's 28, or I guess minus us, 23 people who came today to listen and contribute your energy and love. And I would love to ask each one of you, as we wind down here, to share one thing that you're excited about. And it could be the big future next year, but something that you're excited about. Where you are located online, how people can get a hold of you. And then, do you have any resources or books that you feel are helpful to folks not only who are new to the industry, but also seasoned professionals as well? And Brian, what you want to kick it off, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Something I'm going to be busy. So, just graphic recording and doing facilitation work for federal government, just going on past experience. I'm going to be real busy in the near future. So looking forward to that. If anybody wants to get some practice, get in touch with me. Yeah, there's going to be a lot happening just in the DC area in the coming year, to say the least. So I'm excited about that. How people can reach me. So I'll drop my email into chat. That's probably easiest. So it's brian@lizardbrain.com. And then books and resources. I mean, I'll point people if they're interested in the, the virtual side of things. I've got a copy of my book, Surviving the Horror of Online Meetings, and you can find that on paperback or Kindle. And that's me.
And that was what, the first week out, #1 on Amazon?
It was actually. Thanks for mentioning it.
So Muddy, what is one thing that you're excited about, or two things? You can share more than one. Doesn't have to be two.
Well, this is fun. I love being here with all of you. And I switched to gallery view, and it's like it's so fun looking around the room and seeing so many of you, and it just warms my heart. And so being here with you is something that excites me. And many of you I've worked with since 2020, helping to optimize your digital studios and helping to kind of bring visual practice into the virtual space. And it's something I continue to do. You may kind of notice the kind of studio kind of stuff in my background. And one of the things that I'm putting together is a home studio scorecard. And I'll have a prototype of it. Should be done tonight or tomorrow. So love to send that out for folks that are interested. I'll drop it in the graphical facilitation group too, as a chance just to kind of evaluate and see where you're at with that. So that's one thing I'm excited about. The other thing I'm excited about is I continue to lower the bar and introduce graphic thinking, visual thinking to audiences with note cards and a webcam. And so helping to lower the bar and just take notes in meetings and encourage others to do the same and just hold them up to the webcam. So I'm at the Whiteboard Academy, and I'll put my info down here as well. And you can find me on Facebook. So,
Well, thank you so much, Muddy. You were one of the first people I called. You might be the first. No, I called Brian first and said, "OMG, what am I going to do?" And then he said, "Call Muddy." So I know that you helped a lot of us weather the shock of losing all of our work in March of 2020. So we really appreciate that. And you're such a joy always to hang out with. So thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you in person soon. Thank you. Tanya, what's one thing that you're excited about?
Similar to Brian, just really interesting projects in the upcoming year and sharing that online, sharing what we're exploring. And yeah, I think for resources, there's one piece that I wanted to pop in the chat here, around data and AI through an Indigenous lens. This is from a colleague of mine, a team of mine that I'm connected into here locally, an Indigenous-led communications firm. And I think it's such an interesting ebook. I really encourage you guys check it out because it just challenges our thinking around data usage and new tech. So that sort of stuff I'm excited to learn from different perspectives on too. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, you can find me at thefuselight.com, and I'll put that in the chat too as well.
Thank you so much. Well, and I'll tell you, I'll never forget meeting you in 2019 and inviting you out to dinner and having no idea the kind of rock star I got to enjoy a Ethiopian meal with in
That's right, we
in
did.
Montclair.
But
Still one of the
honestly,
best.
so much gratitude for all of you and hosting this space too. I think it's amazing to be among peers here.
Yes, it's wonderful. Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to know you. And Joran, what is a thing that one or two things that you're very excited about?
I'll limit it to one, and it wasn't a throwaway or a coincidence that I mentioned self-care earlier on the call. I have been traveling much more frequently now for work, and it's to the point where it's like a week off, a week out and then a week home, or sometimes it's 2 weeks out and a week home. And for someone who used to have self-care practice in place that was rooted in my geography and where I lived, whether it was my home or my city, that's no longer sustainable for me. I need self-care practices that I can take on the road with me. I need to do, I don't know, like yoga in my hotel room, or I need to find a body of water in the city I'm in and go give it the things that I no longer want to carry. You know, I need to find portable self-care practices that can live on the road with me, because otherwise my body can't sustain the work. So that's what I'm excited about, is to discover those, find those, learn those, adopt those, maybe find a community that is discussing those and keeping each other accountable to those. All that's what I'm excited about this year. And then I'm going to put the link to the book in again in the chat, my most recent one on facilitation, which I've mentioned a couple times on this call. And then please connect with me on LinkedIn. And that's my Grove email address if you guys want to reach out and stay connected. I'd love to stay connected with everybody on the call.
Thank you. Well, I think your idea of being part of, or maybe even creating, spearheading the creation of a self-care group would be wonderful, and I will join you on that, because I feel you. I leave home and then everything goes out the window.
Yeah.
I can't sustain it on the road, and so I think that would be a really wonderful community to put together. Well, thank you all for joining me. My heart is filled up and full. I'm bursting with ideas and love for all of you. And I cannot thank you enough for joining me on this Monday evening, afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world. And I look forward to doing this again. We will have another panel discussion. I think I need to come up with a different word, because this is just like, getting in a van and going to the airport, as Casey liked to say. a long drive to the airport. So I'm going to bid you adieu. Thank you. And I'm going to pass it over to Brian so he can bookend this with his wonderful personality and a couple little final notes for us.
Right. Well,
Thank you.
let's give Sarah a big Nova Scribes. Thank you very much. And to the other panelists, yay! And I'll go ahead and take us off the air. Here we go.